Why, hello there, Hector Davil here. In this video we are going to be digging a little bit deeper into the 3 SMA system and more particularly into the moving averages themselves, or actually how we are going to read and use those moving averages. Alright, as already established on a previous video, the 3 simple moving averages are the 30, the 50 and the 100. Please mind that I don't use exponential moving averages, alright, or EMA as some of you may know them. I do not use exponential moving averages. In my opinion, EMAs get a little wobbly on your chart, whereas a simple moving average is rather smooth, or at least smoother than the EMAs, and therefore, at least again, in my opinion, they are easier to read. Alright, now, why are we gonna, or what are we gonna use those 3 SMAs for? Well, first of all, in order to determine the direction of the trend, but more importantly, in order to determine the health of the trend. Now, you're probably wondering, how can we actually use a moving average in order to determine the health of a trend, right? Well, we are gonna use 6 trend conditions, or actually we are gonna apply the moving averages in order to fulfill 6 trend conditions, and if those 6 conditions do apply, then we are indeed dealing with a healthy trend. Now, don't you worry, I know the whole thing sounds a little bit complicated. It's actually not, alright? It's actually not. Again, don't worry, we are gonna go each of those 6 conditions one by one, okay? Alright, here we are with the 3 SMA trend conditions. As you can see here, I have listed the 6 conditions, okay? Again, don't worry, we are gonna go through each of them, and here we have a screenshot where all those 6 conditions actually apply. Alright, now this is just one screenshot, but again, don't worry, we are gonna see and we are gonna review plenty of them as many times as it's necessary for you to fully understand the concepts. Okay? Alright, let's get going. Okie dokie, first condition. All 3 simple moving averages must be in order. Let's take a look into this screenshot. The green line is the 30 moving average, the red line is the 50, and then the blue one is the 100. Okay, again, 30, 50, and 100. So they all have to be in order. Obviously, if the 30 is below the 50 and the 50 is below the 100, then we are looking into a downtrend. Conversely, if the 30 was above the 50 and the 50 above the 100, then we would obviously be looking into an uptrend. All right, as long as they all of them are in order, then well, we are obviously potentially looking into a trending scenario should the other 5 conditions apply as well. Second condition, all of them have to be pointing in the same direction. Now let's go back into our screenshot. As we can see, all these moving averages are all pointing down, isn't it? The 100 is certainly pointing down all along, the 50 is also pointing down all along, and the 30, well, pretty much the same thing. They are all pointing down, right? So imagine we had the 100 the way it is, the 50 the way it is, but the 30 was already curling up, and now at this precise moment it was now pointing up. Sure, they are still all in order, the 30 below the 50 and the 50 below the 100, but now they are not all pointing in the same direction, right? Because the 30 is already curling up, it's already pointing up, sorry. Therefore, this second condition would be violated, and therefore we cannot establish this particular scenario as a solidly healthily trending scenario anymore. Okay, as long as one of these individual conditions are broken, well, I am afraid that the trend is in place no longer. Okay, so again, they all have to be in order, they all have to be pointing in the same direction, either down in a downtrend or up for an uptrend. Alright, third condition, they all have to be parallel or what's the same. We want to see no crossover at any rate. Now let's take another look into our screenshot. Do you see any moving average crossover all along? Not really. Not really. They've all always been, well, maybe not perfectly parallel, okay? But at any rate, we've seen no crossover whatsoever. The 30 has always been below the 50 and the 50 always below the 100. So no crossover there, all right? So as long as that happens, as long as you see no crossover in your moving averages, that's another green light towards a solid trend. Now, fourth condition. Price should remain on the right side of the 50 simple moving average. Now, what's the right side? Well, the right side in the case of a downtrend is obviously below the 50 simple moving average. Please mind that the red line is the 50 simple moving average, and you can obviously clearly see how price remains below that line all throughout the trend. In the case of an uptrend, you want to see price floating above the 50 simple moving average at least the majority of the time, okay, most of the time throughout the trend. Now I have another screenshot here for you where we can see how occasionally price may breach above the 50 simple moving average, and it is still okay. Alright, let's review this screenshot. Okay, the three simple moving averages get in order at that moment. That's where we have our final crossover, right? And from that point on, the 30 is below the 50 and the 50 is below the 100. However, I mean, properly speaking, the trend doesn't quite begin until that moment. How is that? Well, because until that point, the 30 simple moving average has been pointing flat, okay, has been pointing sideways. Please mind that the second condition is that they all point in the same direction, right? So they all begin pointing down at that moment, and therefore that's exactly where the trend when price begins to trend in a rather solidly fashion, okay, from that moment on. From that point, we see no further crossover. All the moving averages are more or less flat, more or less pointing in the same direction. And please mind how price remains on the right side of the 50 simple moving average most of the time. However, we can also notice how price occasionally, occasionally does breach beyond the 50 simple moving average, okay? We do get some occasional breakouts. Now, that's still okay as long as price doesn't remain above the 50 simple moving average for more than 3 or 4 consecutive bars, okay? Please mind how even though we do get a breakout within 1, 2, 3 bars, price dives back below the 50 simple moving average once again. Here, well, here it doesn't even take one single bar, right, for price to dive back below. Pretty much the same thing there. And there we do get a breakout, but immediately after, again within 2, 3, 4 bars, price gets back down to where we want it to be, right? Now, where does the trend break? The trend breaks at this moment. We see how price eventually breaks the 50 simple moving average once again, but then it doesn't quite dive below anymore, right? Instead, we get 1 bar closing above the 50, 2 bars, 3 bars, then the 30 begins to point to the upside, begins to curl up. Eventually we get the crossover, and well, eventually price touches the 100. We will see that the next condition we're gonna be reviewing is that price never touches throughout the trend the 100 simple moving average. The 100 simple moving average is like the point of no return, alright? Once price touches the 100, that's it. The party's over. I'm sorry, it was a beautiful move all the way from there, actually there, all the way until this point, okay, this was a beautiful trend. We would have been searching for short opportunities all along this party, but at that moment it's time to search for trading opportunities somewhere else. All right, and again, that's exactly how we are going to be using the 3 simple moving averages from now on. And I'm getting ahead of myself, but at any rate, I want to, I just want to show you very briefly how we're going to be using the simple moving averages in order to determine when to start searching for trades, meaning once the trend kicks in, and when to also stop searching for trading opportunities, meaning once the trend comes to an end, basically when price begins to give us multiple bar closes beyond the 50% limit, once the moving averages begin to call up, once price touches the 100, once we get crossovers, etc., it's time again to call it quit and to search for other trends somewhere else. All right? And, as already established, the 5th condition is that price never touches the 100 simple moving average. I got ahead of myself back there. I know I get overly excited when I talk about Forex. My wife tells me that every single day, trust me. So I apologize for that. But again, the 5th condition is that you don't want price to get anywhere near the 100 simple moving average territory. It's okay if price meddles occasionally with the 50 simple moving average, that's alright, but you don't want to see price anywhere near the 100 SMA nearabouts, okay? As I call it, it's simply the point of no return. And now, finally, the 6th and last condition. We want to see harmonic bounces of what I call dynamic area of support and resistance. Now, this 6th condition is a little bit more complicated to understand, it's a little bit more complex, so to speak. I believe all the first 5 conditions are pretty straightforward, pretty easy to understand. However, this 6th condition requires me to go a little bit more in depth into it. Okay, so I am going to explain this 6th condition on its own video, just so we don't quite overstretch this video. All right, but for the time being, I will just say that first of all, the dynamic area of support and resistance is the area between the 30 and the 50 simple moving average. Okay, this band that I am coloring here on my screenshot, okay, that's what I call the dynamic area of support and resistance. Now, why do I call it the dynamic area of support and resistance? Well, because in my experience, price tends to bounce off that area. As long as we keep on trending on and on, price tends to give us new swings, or rather new swings tend to spring off that area, and therefore we are going to be searching for bounces off that area in order to trigger new trading opportunities. Please mind how price, upon a retracement, retraces back into this dynamic area of support and resistance, and there it goes on a whole new swing in the direction of the trend. Another retracement, price comes to retest once again that band, that dynamic area of support and resistance, and there it goes, another swing in the direction of the trend. Another pullback, another swing, and so on and so forth. Actually, let me show you the other screenshot that I had ready for you. Please mind how price goes, takes off on a swing, then gives us the pullback back to the dynamic area, a little bit of a breach there, and then another swing in the direction of the trend. Another pullback back to the dynamic area of support and resistance. Resistance in this case, since we are in a downtrend, and off it goes for a whole new swing in the direction of the trend. Another pullback, another swing, another pullback, another swing. Do you guys see that? Another pullback, dynamic area of support and resistance, another swing? Well, the 3 SMA system basically is going to wait, or is gonna let's say it's gonna be searching for the trading opportunities as price retraces back to this hot area, this hot band, okay, this area I am marking here between the 30 and the 50 simple moving average, and as price begins to bounce in the direction of the trend, that's where we are going to be searching for our trading opportunities, again, to profit from these bounces of that dynamic area. Again, as I was mentioning before, that's gonna take a little bit more of time, and well, that's why I am going to leave this sixth condition for the next video. Alright, so I'm gonna drink a glass of water and I'll be waiting for you at the next video. Cheers, thanks for watching.